there's not much there isn't. I don't think there's anything that I'm not happy like talking about, to be honest. Ooh, that's a bold revelation in itself, isn't it? Like
I think when you start to do, well, not when you start to do, when you've done so many years of self-work, I know for myself, like there's very little feel weird about talking about now. Whereas a few
it's
years
almost
ago,
it's almost like shut me up, because I will tell you my deepest and darkest. Because if I've learned something from it, I feel like everybody else should like let me share my experience with you. You don't want to hear my story, stranger at the bus, but you know.
Yeah, no, and I also believe that the more we share our personal truths and our kind of deepest, darkest secrets, the more it's normal for everybody else, and so they don't feel, I think we should start.
Yeah, this is what happened when Rachel interviewed me for whatever it was. We started chatting, and she's like, "I need to press record because this is the juicy stuff, right?" But yeah,
and I love as well how I can, get people like you on here who I know are just gonna like totally down connect with, and we're into it straight away.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I'm not about the small talk. You know.
Yeah.
Can't do it anymore. I'm not interested. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? Like there are days when I'm just like, But most of the time, I sat with my friends just before we started. I sat around my friends yesterday, and neither of these two of my friends are particularly spiritual in the slightest. But they love me, and they've been my heart for so many years.
Yeah.
And they were talking about periods, and they're sat there talking, and they were like raving about their PMT, and I was raving at my husband, and this and this and this, and I was like had the red mist and all this and da 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 da, and I'm sitting there quietly, like, And then one of them turned around and she went, "You don't really suffer with PMT, do you, Emma?" And I went, "Well," it's like I've just got to the point where I've done so much work on myself and my spiritual stuff that I said to her, I can honestly say that I love every part of my cycle. I love my bleed, I love this, I love that. And she just went, "Oh God, no." I was just like, that's where we are. And I love that she can just fully accept me and that about me.
No, I think it's great when you can be friends with people who are different from you as well.
Yeah, and there's never any like, they don't belittle what I do. Ever. And I don't judge anything that they like, that they talk about, like, even if I sit there, like, because don't you? You'll do it with people when you hear them say something, and in my head I'm like, that's interesting. You maybe should look at that. I won't say it, I'm like,
I'm quite, I'm so much better these days, but I'm still basically a very blunt Scot, and so sometimes I can't help myself to just like, I'll just say things, and I'll be like, oh, that probably wouldn't go down very well, but
when you see somebody triggered and you're like, I'm just not going to say a word. I'll just like
I bet you get a face on you as well when you're doing that. It's just kind of like,
You just like, in my head I start going, that's really interesting. I just find, and you probably find the same thing, that, and this is nothing to do with me in my role of what I do. This is purely based on the stuff that like my own healing, that when I see somebody get triggered, it tells me far more about them than it does what is trigger, like what it is that's triggered them. And I find I love people. I find people fascinating, and I just find that really interesting. And I, like, in my head I'm going, you could unravel that and like unpick that and dive into it and really feel that and live through it and heal. But the other part of me goes, if you say that, she's probably gonna like hate you forever, be even more triggered, never want to speak to you again. So I just smile and nod, just go, just observe, don't you? You just have to observe people. I just find it really fascinating.
And also when it comes to yourself, when you do that as well.
Yeah.
There's those days, like you said, when it's like, oh, for God's sake, not more stuff. Just leave me alone. And then there's other days where you're like, oh, that's so weird.
Yeah. I found myself really annoyed, really angry yesterday by something driving. I was driving along, really peed off by something. Can't remember what it was now. And while I'm driving, I'm talking to myself about how pissed off I am about this. And then when I pull up on the driveway, going, "You're only pissed off about it, Emma, because of blah blah blah, and that's because you think blah blah blah." Oh well, I'm having a full-on conversation with myself.
I do that in the car. I do that. Yeah.
And I'm like, Emma, for God's sake, you're doing it again. It all comes back to you're not feeling enough, isn't it? Like, for God's sake. Okay. But then you calm yourself down, don't you? I'm like, I'm not angry about it anymore. I'm just able to,
I actually find, rather than journaling, I find that speaking to myself aloud is so much more beneficial, because I can literally just work through it in real time, and it's
well, talking to somebody is really, like, I find that, like, there's not many people that I can go to. And I think, like, you know Kathy, don't you? Kathy is one of the people that I can message, and I have done in the past, and just messaged her and gone, "Can I just talk through something? I don't need your opinion. I just need to process it, but I need somebody to sound it off."
Yes.
Like, and I have done. Poor Kathy, just voice noted the hell out of her, going, "So this came up for me," and it's not because there's so few people that can hold that space. You know, for you to just sound through, because, like you say, I wish I could journal more.
Yeah.
But I'm the same. I just prefer to speak it.
Yeah. No, I've learned that for myself, because I've tried journaling so many different ways and different times, and it just I felt like it was a bit dead.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But then I think, that's part of my kind of whole expression release thing, that I need to let it out, like, properly, not just kind of, and language as well. I studied linguistics. I love language. I love words, but it's so restrictive, I find.
Yes. So. Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I'm like, Paul's really good, my other half, my fiance. That sounds really weird. That sounds really strange. But he's really good. I can just say to him, like, I'm just gonna speak at you. Like, you don't need to respond. Just let me talk at you. Like, I don't need you to reply. I just need you to hear it. Like, and like, I can speak my way through a lot of stuff. I can process a lot of stuff that way.
Yeah. That's really good to have a man that can do that and not want to fix things for you.
Yeah. I think we've learned. I think that's one of the things that we've learned growing together as a couple, like in his spiritual journey as well. That's one of the things that we've learned.
Yeah, Matt's been a bit like that as well. Is that his default was always, well, I don't know how to fix it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you to fix it.
Which is a really masculine thing, isn't it? Though that's a really masculine thing. But Paul's he's got really good at it. And I've got really good. I wasn't very good at voicing what was probably really going on. Like, you know, I was better at, like, just being all there. Well, no, you've annoyed me because blah 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 blah, or this is not whatever. You know, I wasn't very good at actually seeing it for what it was. So I've got better at being self-aware, isn't it? I've got loads better at being self-aware about what it is that needs to be. Like, I'm a big believer that nothing that happens around me or to me is about anybody else but me. Like, and I tell my clients, like, you know, when somebody tells you you're not the center of the universe, they're a liar, because you are the center of your own universe, and everything that happens is about you. Because of how you respond to it. And that's all there ever is. If someone annoys you, that person it's not about what that person's done. It's still about you. You're still the one that's annoyed. So, like, I've learned that the hard way, and he's learned to listen, like, and just listen.
Do you have children?
Yeah.
You do? How old are they?
We've got 4 between us. So my 2 boys are 15 and 12, and his 2 girls are 16 and 12.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. A house full of teens. Wow. Because I was going to
Yeah.
say, trying to teach children when they're annoyed about something that it's their issue to deal with.
You know what though? That's where I'm at my least aware as a parent as well. That's where I struggle the most. In like, I'm pretty good at, you know, being me, like in my world, being self-aware of me and what affects me. As a mother, I'm still learning to not be triggered.
Oh my God, it's just ongoing.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, my kids trigger me, and I think that's probably the same for most parents. My kids trigger me more than anybody else, but that's because apart from being like an energetic reflection, apart from like their actions being a reflection on me, they literally are smaller versions of me.
And of the parts of yourself as well that you maybe don't necessarily want to look at as much.
Oh my God. And I find myself like, I get more irritated and more triggered by stuff that my kids say and do than anything else. And that's when we do the whole, I'm a crappy mum because like I know this, but I behave like this. Like,
just normal, honestly. And you know, I kind of wish, in some ways, obviously not always, in some ways I kind of wish that everybody had to go through parenthood just to experience the rapid self-development. It's like
it's tough, isn't it? It's tough. Anyway, they're all teenage. Anyway, go on. We're doing stuff that we could probably
start. Okay. Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to chat to you today. And I'm going to jump right in and ask you all about your little girl, your 5-year-old self.
Oh God. Just going to cut right in there.
Right in there. I'd love you to feel into who she was, or maybe still is, if you're connected to her, and describe her to me.
Wow. My goodness. My 5-year-old, she's a chatterbox. She really, you don't even know the half. Like, she really is. She's so bubbly and creative and excited by just life. Just everything excites her, and everything is just, everything around her is really beautiful and really exciting, and everything's very she's so creative. She's so and intuitive as well. I mean, I know that she's really intuitive, and she's probably really scared of that as well.
Yeah.
She's a very frightened little girl, and I mean, like, I know I can say that because I've sat with her numerous times, you know. But she's pretty frightened, or she's soon to be, you know. Like, maybe not at 5, but not much older. The world starts becoming a really frightening place.
Oh man, isn't it interesting how there's so much that we can tap into with our inner little girls. And some of it's amazing, some of it just reminds us how like expansive we really are. And then of course there's the world stuff, and it's that juxtaposition of like our expansiveness beginning to meet the world.
Oh, chills.
Wow. So what would she say about where you are, who you are now?
What would she say? Oh, I think she'd love it. Like, the work that I do now, she'd love it. But she'd love it with a kind of, what do you mean it took you this long? Like, kind of, what do you mean we haven't been doing this the whole time? Kind of.
Oh,
like, I think she'd be frustrated with me for how long it took me to get here. Because I think when we're that age, we're so connected and we're so open, and everything just makes sense then, doesn't it? And then we go through this period, like at a certain point, whatever point it is, like you say, when we meet the world, where we start to close a lot of that down because it's not maybe socially accepted, or it's just not the done thing, or we start falling into our social conditioning and we get the opinion of lots of people and outsiders, and I think my little girl would be surprised by how easily I put the real me in a box and just lived like that for so long.
Yeah.
Like, she's probably quite annoyed with me for it.
Oh,
but yeah, like, and I think that looking at where I am now, she'd definitely be a bit like, finally. This is where we should have been the whole time.
And what might you say to her about that journey that you made, like about that kind of gap that she perceives?
That, and it would have been I would have said something different a while ago, but in hindsight, it has all been necessary.
Yeah.
Like, all of it. All right, maybe some of it wasn't quite as necessary as other parts, but it's all been necessary. It's all been this building block, like these building blocks, these pieces, and yeah, I mean, somebody once said to me, when I said to somebody that I've made lots of mistakes, and somebody said to me, were they mistakes, or was it actually perfect? Like,
yeah.
And that's something that I took a really long time to integrate, and kind of adjust to. But yeah, I do. Yeah, I think everything's necessary. Even the bits that we think are mistakes.
Yeah.
It was all perfect as it happened,
And isn't it funny as well that, you know, I can sense my own little girl kind of just responding to this conversation with impatience. It's like, but why? Why do I need to take so long?
Yeah.
I want to do it now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And she's I don't know, she's been quite loud for me actually recently.
Yeah, I've been working loads with my little girl actually quite recently. Whether or not I don't know, whether maybe there's an energy about it at the moment that's like bringing forward all these inner children within us.
I think so.
Yeah.
Especially our little girls.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think mine's been quite vocal. She's been quite I've been doing more things out of the joy of doing it. Like, we forget as adults to do things for just the joy of doing it. Like, everything has to be for a purpose, doesn't it? Everything that we do has to have, and there has to be a result at the end of it that benefits us in some way. Why does there have to be?
Yeah.
Why does there have to be a benefit at the end of it? Why can't it just be because it's joyful to just do it?
We're so ingrained in our kind of productive society.
Yeah.
Even just to, and it is so deeply ingrained, because we get into that feeling of, if we're sitting on the couch or staring out of the window or whatever it is just for 5 minutes, it's like, oh God, and you feel guilty. It's like, that's how toxic it is. And so to go beyond even into joy or play, well, that's just indulgent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I do something that I enjoy, then I have to do it because I'm really good at it, and in some way it's going to turn into some sort of productive thing for me. Everything, like the amount of people that will say, oh, you could sell, if being a creative person, oh, you could sell those, oh, you could make money from that, or you could, I don't want to, I just want to, like, I tell people all the time that, like, get your crayons out, paint, like draw, colour. Oh, I'm not very good at drawing or colouring, so
doesn't matter. I know.
Doesn't matter. Like, you're not trying to. We need to have. We need to create something, don't we? We don't need to create anything. You just need to be in the moment of expressing it and doing it.
Yeah.
And loving it.
So on the same page there. So much. You know, I still get it as well. Feeling it this week actually, that, you know, I have been wanting to start a new painting, and yet so my process now is I deliberately don't have a mental vision, a mental idea of what I want to paint before I paint it, because I want it all to come energetically. And there's an energetic intention, but it's not verbal or even visual. It's just pure energy. And that's what I want to come to the canvas with. But this week I've been like, and I think because of the long summer holidays, I've not had much time to paint, so I've got kind of these urges but they're kind of starting to translate into mental ideas, and I'm like, no, I want to clear all of that.
You don't want to come from that space of,
because I don't want it to be, well, I'm trying to create this thing,
because then you're trying to emulate something that you've seen in your mind's eye rather than just being in the moment and being in the flow of it. Aren't you? Yeah. I do the same with writing. Like, I struggle to write like blog posts or anything that I'm writing. When I used to be a freelance writer and I used to write articles and things, like, anytime that I would write, there would always be, the aim would be to, somebody's going to read it, and what is the opinion going to be of the person who's going to read it? And I just forgot for so long about writing for the sheer pleasure of writing. Writing so that, like, I don't care who reads it. I'm not writing because I'm worried about who's going to read it. I want to write because I want to write, because these words want to flow through me and onto the paper. But it's that trying to come back to that when you've stuck and you've got your mind stuck in this. I need to make a blog post that's going to draw people in, and people are going to love it, and then obsessing over how many people have read it and how many views it had, and it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. And you know, the some of my, what I believe is my best work, even like whether that's kind of like visual or verbal or whatever, I don't think it's that popular. but I feel like it's my best work, and that's the real validation for me. And it's
because
hard
there's an energy in it.
Yes, it's hard to keep coming back to that when you're like, but this is good, more people should like it.
I know, because we constantly seek validation, don't we, from outside of ourselves. Constantly, we're programmed to do it. We're programmed to seek external validation at all times, and it's really difficult to turn that off.
It is,
really difficult,
especially in these days of social media and like,
when you are literally, your worth is in how many views or likes or comments. It's had, like, blows my mind, but it hurts my heart, actually, is what it does. It hurts my heart when I see that. And I see it happening with my children, and I see it happening with teenagers. It's I see it, and I can't tell them otherwise, because what do I know? I'm mum. I don't know what I'm talking about, clearly. Like, what do I know? But at the same time, how do you teach teenagers or teach people another way of thinking when you fall into that trap yourself over and over and over? Because I do it, we all do it. It's designed to do that to you. That's the point of it.
And I don't know about you as well, but I find myself, especially with my son likes to do things as quickly as possible, which I can relate to. I definitely used to be a bit like that, still can be, but he likes his kind of goalpost, as it were, for anything, whether that's baking or a piece of homework or whatever. He got in the car yesterday and said, right, I've got some English homework, I'm going to do it now and just get it over with. I'm like, isn't doing your English homework in the car the best idea whilst I'm driving home? I struggle with putting onto him my kind of like level of what would be acceptable, what would be seen as good. And you know, I've done that with his baking. I'm like, maybe you could just put a bit more effort into how they look. And it's so hard.
It's really hard. It's really hard. It is really hard. Being a parent is just hard. Just in general. In general, being a parent is hard. Being responsible for another human being when I'm just barely struggling myself to be responsible for me.
But what you said earlier, before we started, about, you know, our children really do trigger us the most out of all the beings, you know. And I think possibly even, like, if you can imagine maybe the person that in the world that is on the complete opposite, you know, kind of political spectrum to you, and is, you know, maybe got all of these beliefs that you are again on polar opposite kind of. For me, I can somehow come to terms with that person more easily than I can with my child in the moment when they're triggering me.
Oh, so much yes. So much yes. Yeah, my sons are 15 and 12, as I said to you earlier, and like, on the one hand, this is going to sound awful. On the one hand, they are the most incredible human beings that I've ever seen. I'm like immeasurably proud of these humans, these people that are now like getting to that point where they're about to step out into the world as, you know, their own little person.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, they're the most irritating of anything I've ever come across. Like, honestly, the only time I ever, like, I'm not a confrontational person, I'm not an angry person, but my kids can trigger me to be quite confrontational. And like I was saying to you earlier, I do think it's just because they mirror us, don't they? They are, like we said, they are part of me. They have all these characteristics that come from me, and they're things about me that I don't really like, that I work on. Like my flaws and stuff being thrown in my face by my 15-year-old son, and I'm like,
and all those things that you think that you've done so much work on, but then you see, so I want to give you an example. So like impatience, right? I've done so much work on impatience, but when I see that in my kids, you know, and it's slightly different in my boy versus my girl, but it just really irritates me, because it's like, oh, I've done this work, haven't you?
You forget, don't you? It's really easy to forget that they are people at the beginning of their journey, at the very, very beginning of their journey. And like, I know I really have to think back to when I was that age and remember how scattered my mind was and how scary everything was. Like, everything around me was absolutely, I mean, I'm like, I've expressed this on my social medias before. I had a lot of issues with my mental health when I was growing up, when I was from a really, really young age. And so the world for me was just downright terrifying. Like, and I didn't want to grow up. Why does anyone want to grow up? Like, why do you want to be an adult? I don't want to be an adult. All my friends are desperate to be adults, and I'm like, hold the phone. No, I don't want to step out into that world. It's horrendous. So I do have to consciously sit back and say to myself, right, remember, Emma, how difficult it was when my son is being infuriating, like infuriating about, what is it, for but for my 15-year-old, the reason I just went is because I know it's the stuff about me that I've been called in the past and that I've worked in the past. It's that believing that he's right. You know, his opinion is right. Like, because it's his opinion, it's right.
Yes.
And I know that I was that person as well. I know that I've been through that, and it took me such a long time to go, somebody else's opinion is okay. Like, I was that opinionated person. I was an opinionated kid. So to see it in my children is infuriating when it doesn't come with that, like, that what I've learned as an adult is that moment of pause to think about, actually, somebody's coming at this from a different angle, through a different lens. Like,
so much. I can relate to that. So I wanted to come back to what you touched on there about your mental health issues, and just to kind of relate as well that, you know, I can remember from about the age of maybe 9 struggling with kind of bouts of depression and you know, actual suicidal ideation from a really early age. And I've got a very clear memory from, I think, when I was about 11, and I was in the house on my own, and I just went right down to all the real horrible, yucky kind of places. And how do you feel looking back on that part of your life now?
I look back on all of it as a whole. It was so my mental health kind of, as everybody's does, kind of roller coasted throughout my life. I was about 9 when it started. I didn't know that until I was 19. I just thought, I'll be on, to be completely honest, I just thought I was a bit crazy. And then I got to 19 and I saw a psychologist because mine manifested as this phobia that became this debilitating phobia that had me just not living my life. And so I sought out help when I was 19, and I went and saw a hypnotherapist who was also a psychologist, and she was the one that said to me, you've been in a state of clinical depression since you were 9, but people don't recognize depression in children of that age. They just don't acknowledge it. It just doesn't exist. And that was a revelation for me. I remember her telling me that, and my mind just being like, like it just landed so hard that I was okay. Like, just because somebody had said to me, this is what I'm not crazy. Like, this is what you've been through. And so I can look back. I have 2 different lenses that I look back on over my life. One of those lenses I look back on and I see all and this is what I know that I'm very good at compartmentalizing things. One of those lenses I look back on and I see all the wonderful things that happened to me and all the amazing memories that I have of growing up. And then the other lens I look back on is the lens that I see through, like, my heart, you know, more than up here. And I still feel all the pain. I mean, I can separate myself from it now, you know, I can look back and say, I'm not there anymore at all. But I still lived through it. I still, like, you remember what a headache feels like, you know, even if you don't have one at the time. I remember what I felt. I remember how scared I was, just all the time.
Wow.
And it was, I mean, like, I'm a crystal therapist by what, like, majority of what I do is around crystals. And I think the only reason that I'm genuinely, like, still here is because I had that was, for me, what saved me over and over again, was that I had this, like, this tangible thing that was mine. And I've been working with crystals since I was 13, and so it's something that I could hold, you know? And they helped. And it was like, and I always consider them like an anchor, like they are like an anchor for me. And I sat there and I was thinking the other day, because somebody else was talking to me about mental health issues and suicidal thoughts, and I said, I can honestly say that I don't remember too often being as low as being suicidal, thankfully for myself. But I think it was because I had my anchors, that stopped me going to the really dark places. Like, I tended to catastrophize more and just be convinced that I was going to get ill and die from something, like something that was going to, I was, that was what I did. I catastrophized, and I did it right up until through my children being born. And like, it took me a really long time before I started to heal.
I think it's really interesting that so many of us as empaths and sensitives have these kind of histories. And for me, it really speaks to us just not being accepted in the world, and also for our sensitivity, because we're literally absorbing so much information that it's so much to process, and our world doesn't allow us to process it.
It feels too big, doesn't it?
It
feels too big for such a little person. For me, as not at 9 years old, it was too much. It was just too big. Like, and then you pile on the traumas that happen to people as well, that are like, that directly affect us. And we're not great as human beings. We're not great at dealing with trauma. We like to feel the good stuff. We don't like to feel the bad stuff. We try and brush over the bad stuff, push that to one side. Let's not really deal with it because it feels unpleasant. And so grief and trauma, we skip over. And when you skip over it, all you're really doing is burying it, holding on to it, like, and it's going to come back at some point, or it's just going to pile on to everything else that you're already feeling, because you haven't allowed yourself to feel it.
Absolutely.
As a child, how do you know that? How do you know to do that if your parents haven't been taught how to process grief and trauma? How do they teach you as a child how to process grief and trauma?
And again, as a parent now, I'm finding it super hard, especially with my daughter, who's she's going to be 11 soon. She's got really intense anxiety, and I think it's been definitely worsened over the last kind of couple of years for obvious reasons. And I really struggle to kind of get her to take that step back from being in all of the the high alert kind of panic mode. And
it's a horrible place to be, though, isn't it? That I mean, part of my mental health, I had like clinical depression and I mean severe debilitating anxiety. And my son has his anxiety is loads better now, my eldest son, but his anxiety has been debilitating in the past. And it's hard for me as a parent, like going back to what we were saying a little while ago, it's hard for me as a parent to see him in that state, and that triggers me. Because I don't want him to be there. I don't like I feel it. I feel what he's feeling. And I know that he can step out of it. I know that he can heal from it. I know that he can be okay. And again, he don't want to listen to me because I'm just mum. What do I know? But it's that kind of, it becomes this like tornado of emotions between the two of us that are really difficult to kind of, like you say, you need to step back from it. You need to step out and like give it a beat, like give it a minute. Like, let's just take a breath and look at the facts. But I also know that when you're living with anxiety, the facts are irrelevant.
Oh God, the
facts don't matter, do they? Like, I could say to my son, like, if we do this, you'll feel better. If we do that, like, why don't you journal this out? Why don't you talk about this? Let's do all the coaching things that I do with my clients. I'm just not going to work with my son.
With my daughter, and obviously because I'm a trained yoga teacher, and with my daughter, for literally since she was tiny, I've been trying to get her to breathe, and since she was little, she said, "I can't, mommy, I can't breathe," and she's still like that. Her anxiety is just so intense in the moment that she can't even, she's hyperventilating, and I'm trying to like put a hand on her and like trying to just do anything to soothe her nervous system. But ultimately, obviously, I want to give her the skills that she can even just begin to access it for herself. And it's so frustrating and just heartbreaking for me, because I can see her spiraling, and it's like, I just want
the thing that I found with my son was that because his anxiety is so much better now, it couldn't come from me. It couldn't come from me. I had a very good friend of mine do some EFT with him and some NLP work, and he only had 2 sessions, I think, with EFT, and it was game changing. And I mean, and I sat in that room listening to this session and trying. It was so difficult not to speak. It was so difficult to like not speak for him, not speak for her. It was so difficult. And I just had to sit back and let him speak. But yeah, I found for him that having those tools, they couldn't come from me because it's mum.
I think you're too close as a parent, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's ultimately the issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had this with both of them, that they get something from somebody else, and it's like, well, I've been trying to tell you that.
Yeah. Frustrating. Yeah, I could have told you that. I've been trying to tell you. No, they can't come from mum. It can't come from mum. I don't think it can come from dad. I don't think it can come from any parent or grandparent or aunt, or maybe aunts and uncles. I think they're like a step separated, aren't they? So kids listen. But no, definitely none of my wisdom can get to my children. No, they're not here for it. But they'll take it from somebody else. Yeah. Like I think they're just so sick of me. Like, it's just God, mum, God's sake, mum. Like, but also as a kid, like, I knew I didn't want to listen to my mum when I was a teenager. It took me years. I was well into my adulthood before I actually went to my mum for advice, and I don't get me wrong, I see people who have that beautiful relationship with their parents, and I think, wow, that's like, when I was growing up, that's incredible that you have that relationship with your parents. But I definitely didn't have it until I was into my adulthood. Through my younger days and my teen years.
Yeah, you sound like you were fiercely independent.
I
can say that because
my mum would agree. Yeah, my mum would agree. Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about your journey with crystals and how you found them. Like, it's such, because 20 years ago, that was it. It was really like out there.
It was. Yeah, it was.
How did you?
So I'm fortunate enough that one of my very best friends, and who I consider one of my soulmates, I met in high school, and her name's Jackie, and I love her. I just had to say that. And we became inseparable in high school, and her mum was hugely into for want of a better word, the occult. Actually, like, she was fascinated by tarot and spells and dragons and myth and magic and things like that. And it was all very dark and mysterious. And I'm 13 years old. I'm a teenager. I'm going through my teenage angst bit. I quite like I'm getting quite gothic in my look. It's the 90s as well. Yeah. So we're all about that. And me and Jackie just we just got really into like the witchcrafty stuff, right? Yeah. So the craft has come out, and it's all quite on trend, actually. And at the same time, me and Jackie we're rebelling hard against like social normality, what's socially accepted. And we actively went seeking stuff that was to do with spellcraft and Romany magic. I particularly was drawn to Romany magic and things like that. And in our quest to find out all this stuff and buy all the books and read all the things, there's there was a couple of little shops that we found where we'd go into for incense and candles and things, and they would sell crystals. And like you say, it was like 20 years ago. There was not much of it about. And I remember picking up snowflake obsidian. And I remember the woman behind the counter saying to me, "Oh, snowflake obsidian, when you hold it, makes you smile."
Oh.
And I went, "Oh." And it like just that connection between something that like my emotions and a stone. I was just like, oh, that's so cute. I need it. And so I took it to school and would like give it to people. Like, oh, look, you're smiling. Oh, look, you're smiling. And I started with, I bought a few little tumble stones, and I started there as 13 years old, with this little tiny wooden box that I bought, filled with maybe about 7 or 8 little tumble stones. And it was very much like, well, that's all stuff and nonsense, isn't it? Like, you know, going, what the hell? And I didn't really understand the science of it until I was quite a bit older, but they made sense to me. They made sense to me. Like they were, like I say, they were an anchor. They were a tangible, and I still to this day I believe that crystals are the bridge between the two worlds. Right? They vibrate across all planes and dimensions. They vibrate across every platform, through the spiritual, the energetic, the human, across every vibrational state and plane that we exist in. Crystals exist upon and vibrate within. And they're tangible. We can hold them. So much of the spiritual stuff that I do, and so much of the spiritual stuff that everybody does, is so bloody esoteric and so ethereal and so not something that you can touch, hold and feel. And crystals are a literal bridge between those worlds.
Love it. Yeah,
a literal and anchor. The fact that they're born of the earth just makes me want to cry. I love it so much. And since then, I've just they've been a constant in my life, even with everything else that kind of came and went. This like deep pull I have towards them has just kind of stayed with me.
Oh, I love that. I think that's just such an amazing kind of connection at, you know, a really young age. And also, as you say, like kind of back in the 90s.
Yeah.
When everybody else was kind of like, you know, I don't know. Oh God, it was such a long time ago. I can't even remember.
Yeah, there was 2 types of people in the world. There were people who were watching The Craft, and there were people who were watching Clueless, and that was like that kind of defined the two types of people that were in high schools in the 90s. It was. I absolutely thrived in that space of being completely authentically spiritual and connected, and in that and then I put myself firmly back in my spiritual box a few years later.
I was gonna say, did you feel like it was a spiritual thing at the time, or was it like, would you have used that word or even that kind of sense, or was it, you know, kind of, oh, this is kind of magic and occult and like?
Yeah, it was witchy. It was. I called myself a witch when I was 13, 14.
Yeah.
I stopped calling myself a witch when I think I was about 17. And I put myself firmly back in the spiritual closet. I shut that door because people, and I only reclaimed the word witch for me within the last 2 years. It was a big deal for me as well. It was very much it was a powerful thing for me to be able to reclaim that word and to speak it without shame. And I know that's a whole different subject, the whole, you know, the shame of the witch and the persecution of the witch and stuff, and that's a whole subject all on its own. But it was a powerful thing for me to be able to reclaim that.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. I just love where we are now in all of this. You know, I like my whole kind of spiritual journey has been that, you know, I just shut that down completely from a really young age. And only just started to open it back up again in the last 10 years. Maybe even less than that, actually. And it has been you can't live a full life, and you can't even feel whole in your life without some spiritual kind of essence, energy, and being connected to that.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah, it's like you've totally reclaimed that part of yourself as an adult as well.
Yeah. Do you not look back though, as somebody, like you say, like you started your spiritual journey really young? Like for me, I know that when I look back now, I can see that some of the, like we talked about my mental health stuff coming in the empath, I can see that I was really open. I can see that like the things that I was experiencing that were contributing to me thinking that I was crazy.
Yes.
In hindsight, now as somebody who's more spiritually aware, who's more self-aware, who's more just aware, that like the clairaudience that I was getting, that I experience now, and I know what it is, and I know how to process that, and I know what to do with it. I was getting it then.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. So it contributed to this whole idea that everything's scary and I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
I've been thinking quite a lot about this recently, because I've been getting these flashbacks to when I was quite young, different ages, and it's been of that feeling of typically being out in nature and just by myself, and feeling so connected to everything, and but it's especially to the universe, to the cosmos, but to everything, feeling so like I could touch it all and it was there, and yet at the same time feeling so profoundly lonely. And that disconnect was what created
feeling like misunderstood. Like, I did. I think I spent an awful lot of my very, very young childhood feeling like nobody got me. Like quite literally, like, was I from a different planet? Am I from a different planet? Like, why don't I don't understand these people, and they clearly don't understand me. These were like these other children in school with me, other people in school with me, and like I had friends. I did go through a whole episode where I had very few, and I was like severely bullied throughout like middle school, but I had friends in primary school, and I still felt really not understood, just not like nobody gets me.
I kind of wonder as well now, part of me wonders, is that because some of us are very, very sensitive, are empathic, or is that just a product of our society that makes us all feel that way, so that we're all actually, individually thinking, I'm a misfit, nobody gets me? Are we all just thinking that?
I've literally just been writing a blog post where I've written about how society conditions us to be separate. Like, we are, the separateness of the world is by design, like our nationalities, our race, our religion, our politics, our sex, gender, like we're just labeled, aren't we? We're put into all these little tiny boxes to make us feel like we have a place, and all it does is makes us feel incredibly lonely and separate, because no two people can ever fit into the same boxes like 100% of the time, can they? So how can and I think that's why the post that I was writing about was about twin flames and soulmates, and I think that's why we go our lives craving people. We go throughout our lives we go seeking our soulmates, seeking our twin flames, seeking like romantic relationships and
always wanting to be on the same page. I know that's something I've really struggled with in all of my relationships, is, this person doesn't feel the same or think the same way about this thing as I do. And really struggling to kind of like not throw all of it out.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Isn't that what they used to say? Yeah, absolutely. Like, we just because we're conditioned to separate ourselves, we're conditioned to think everything needs to be,
Yeah, yeah. And more so, even more so now, right? Where
Yeah.
it's just,
Oh, it's got real now, hasn't it? Like that separation through fear. They've just, I mean, the royal they, whoever they are, they've just raised the bar in the whole trying to make everybody separate, trying to, like, convincing us all to, it's the us and them, isn't it? Us and them mentality
yeah,
all the time with everything.
yeah,
But we're not designed like that. We're not innately at our core. We're not about that. We need to be connected. We need to be surrounded by people.
yeah. Oh man, it's so good to just explore these topics,
Mm.
and just feel like actually we are sane.
Yes, yes, we are. when
Oh,
you find when you find people though that, like, and I know this from exploring the internet, trying to find like-minded souls, and I know that you did the same as well, and like this quest for connectedness with people, it's so, like, when you come across a person who, like, and we're not going to agree on everything because the world would be a really boring place if everybody
yeah,
had the same opinion on things, but when you find somebody that, like, is, like you say, on the same page, isn't there that little piece of your heart that just sighs a little bit of relief, that, like, yes, I knew that was the truth, and somebody else thinks that's the truth as well. So,
absolutely.
like,
There is that sense of validation, but it's like a soul validation rather than an
yeah,
ego validation.
absolutely.
And
It's just, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, to know
It's
that
like a
you're,
coming home for me. It's like another, like, every time I have that, it's like a step closer to home, a step closer to my center,
yeah,
because it doesn't, like that, it's not the same as having an external ego validation, is it? It makes you, when you have that soul validation, it makes you go further inwards, because you go, yes, this feeling inside me was on point, so
yeah.
I'm going to go deeper. Like,
Oh,
it's safe to go
so
deeper,
good.
it's safe to trust it more. Like, because I
Yeah,
think that's half the problem, is that we don't trust it. We don't trust this feeling that comes from here. We don't feel safe to trust the feelings. We look for external validation rather than internal validation.
it's
Like,
so interesting because I remember having this conversation with my husband a few years ago, and I'm not gonna like be able to do it justice now, but he was really struggling with the idea that you don't need external validation because of course our society kind of sees that as, oh well, you're just one big ego then, aren't you? You're just arrogant and full of yourself if you've got that internal kind of validation going on. And you
yeah,
don't need, and actually I think that's just it's wrong.
isn't that, it's interesting though, isn't it? That's really interesting. I find that we are conditioned to believe that like, internal validation is egotistical, internal validation is arrogance. Like,
Yeah,
again, I strongly believe by design, by like by design, that we don't allow ourselves to trust ourselves.
yeah.
Like, we're not supposed to.
Mm,
We're supposed, because then if we constantly seek external validation, then somebody else gets to make all our decisions for
yeah.
us.
Oh, I think you've touched on a key gem there.
So if we,
Wow.
yeah, if we, like, so let's demonize internal validation, demonize soul truths. Look what they did to the witches.
This all comes back to the witch ring.
Yeah,
I was gonna
I'll get,
say.
yeah, it does. Yeah, the patriarchy and all of that stuff, and, like, don't get me started. Yeah, it does
Oh,
all come back to that though. It does. Like, that conditioning.
so on this note then,
Mm.
Emma, what, like, particularly when you are, maybe you're feeling anxious or you're kind of off kilter in some way, how do you come back to that core truth for yourself? How do you come back to what you really deeply know is right and true for you, at least?
Mm. Yeah. Always first and foremost crystals. That was obvious, wasn't it? It's something that I forget. Like, even though it's my work, like, I forget to come back to it. Sometimes I forget to come back to myself. Right? We all do, don't we? We forget to come back to ourselves. And sometimes we need reminding to come back to ourselves. And that's always my reminder. So I know if I'm gone out of what I call being out of alignment, right? I feel that life, everything for me feels like it's in flow when I'm in alignment.
Yeah.
And I feel resistance when I pivot off out of that alignment. And I can be out of alignment for a real long time before I even notice, but at some point I will notice. And it's not even my conscious mind reminds me to go back to the crystals. And so I come back to the crystals, and they're always my link. So I use them to meditate. I use them to journal. I've been using them to talk to you for the last hour. I've got crystals in my hands I've got surrounded myself by blue crystals in front of me to help with communication and to help with intuition and truth and all of that. They're always that's always my link. So I put them in the bath if I have a salt bath. Like, I always come back to self-care first and foremost. Like, I always come back to, let's just stop the world. I want to get off for a minute. Let's just stop for a minute. It took me a really long time to allow myself to do that. It took me a really long time to not have guilt over doing that. Like, I need a day off from the world. Like, it took me
especially when you're self-employed and or creative in any way,
and a parent, and and like here to like cook dinners and do the washing and all, you know, the day-to-day stuff, the human stuff that we have to do. It took me a really long time. I carried a lot of guilt over not being productive enough. And I still do sometimes, and I work on it all the time, but I now allow myself, if I need a day off from the world, I'm taking a day off from the world. And that can look like whatever it looks like. I will literally actually always go to my little girl when I do this, actually, and see what she wants to do for the day. And if she wants to lay on the sofa under a blanket and watch trashy telly, I'm sorry, world, but that's what I'm doing. Like, if she wants to get some roller skates and go out, if she wants to get the paints out and do some painting, or she wants to eat jam on toast and junk food all day, that's what I'm doing. Like, and then coming back to my self-care. Like, I do breath work, I meditate, I like we talked about journaling earlier. I try to journal. I will do crystal grids. I find making crystal grids really therapeutic and really meditative, so I will do that as well. I'll have salt baths. Big fan of the salt bath, like, just to make me feel grounded. And then I'll drink loads of water and go to bed early, and sleep. Just naps. Naps are like the best way.
Oh, naps! I learned to nap. I never used to be able to nap, and I learned to nap when I was actually going through my major healing crisis, and it was I had to, there was because I wasn't getting enough sleep, so I'd literally just go and conk out, you know. But that actually taught me that how to just draw everything in and go and switch everything off, you know, and bring it is really difficult to do. Just bring it all in and down and go 20 minutes, half an hour. Perfect, you know. Reset.
It is a real, like, for some people it's really difficult. Like, I know people who find it really difficult to just go and just close your eyes, just allow yourself to do that, just when you shouldn't be, all the shoulds, when you're surrounded by shoulds. And then when I've spent some time in some self-care, when I've spent a day taking a day off from the world, then we can address what needs to be addressed. And I always come back to it better. So come back to it refreshed. sometimes there's some hard stuff that you need to get through if I've been out of alignment. when you start like acknowledging why did I go off kilter in the first place? What am I avoiding? What am I resisting that pushed me off my alignment? Because it's always something. I'm just much better positioned to be able to look at it, you know, even if I don't particularly want to. Even if I'm like,
it feels easier, doesn't it, when you've actually addressed some of the kind of survival based issues first, because
absolutely.
It always is. It's like, we're not taught this.
No.
Again, probably for very, you know, reasons.
For those things,
but we're not taught this, so it does come with all the guilt and the doubt and everything. But when we address the survival bit, because it's not self-care, it's not frivolous and self-indulgent, it's survival.
I am absolutely. Like I am a spiritual being. I am somebody who is divinely spiritual, as we all are. But in this lifetime and in this dimension on this plane, I am first and foremost a human being. And I think sometimes when we get onto our spiritual path, we would quite like to forget that we're human beings. Yeah, that's the stuff that's sticky and difficult. So like come back to just, what does my human need today, actually? And if most of the time my human just needs rest, like the vast majority of the time she just needs rest, like just allow her to rest, even if it's an hour, if it's a whole day. Sometimes, and I'm gonna be completely honest, sometimes it's been a week that I've needed to rest, like and just be in a state of deep rest, because healing has to occur in that space.
And there's so much, you know, nowadays as well, there's so much to process, so much every single day. I found myself, you know, especially this summer, just being constantly drawn back to the need to do all of my practices, like all of them. I can't skip things, because when I do, it takes me down, because there's just so much to constantly process.
It's self-care, isn't it? It is a practice of self-love to make sure that you do that, to do that. I mean, I like breathwork. For me is something that I've found in the last year is really key for me. I really need it. Like I need to do breathwork sometimes to process things, because otherwise I don't shift the stuff, I don't move and clear out the stuff or process the stuff, because I'm distracted or I'm busy, or
but also it gets into all of the places in our physical body to be able to move all of that stuff up and out, and
you feel it, don't you? You feel it, like you're being weighed down by something.
And it moves our emotions as well. So when we're, you know, we're literally moving all of that stuff up and out, and you can't do that alone through the mind. You just
you can't. And I think having somebody to hold space for you to do it as well is really important. Like I was talking to friends yesterday, and we were talking about the whole process of having people like to help us through, having coaches or healers or guides or whatever you want to call it, whatever title people want to give themselves, needing somebody to do that, because somebody once said to me, you can't reprogram or process or break through a particular mindset from the one that created it. You know, you can't heal from something necessarily from the space that created the wound. Like sometimes you need somebody to come in and shine a light on it from another angle. And even if that's just somebody that comes in and holds the space,
absolutely,
and lets you puts you in a space that allows you to process it in a different way, then you can, and like for me, I don't know how I know you do breathwork as well, so I don't know how for me, some of the weirdest stuff comes up for me, and I go, why did that come up when I was breathing? Why did that? And then being able to then go to somebody and talk through stuff that comes up, having somebody hold space for me to talk through the stuff that came up, especially if it's like particularly random and I'm like, why is that coming up for me now? And then we can get to, like, you can process and get to the core of it. Like,
it is so super necessary to have that kind of that guide, I guess, as you say, because it's giving you that you can't always give yourself the safe space you need. Sometimes you can,
not for the difficult, not for some of the tricky stuff.
I was going to say, especially with the big stuff, you know, I find in my own practice I'll only go so far typically. And
that makes perfect sense, doesn't it, though? Because you don't want to. Want to go there.
Even though you kind of, you know, I'll play with my edges, and obviously parts of my cycle I'll be much more willing to go deeper than other parts. But there's typically always like, nah, that's enough for today.
Absolutely. It's like going to the gym though, isn't it? It's like some people need a personal trainer when they go to the gym, because otherwise they know that they're not. I'm one of those people. If I go to the gym and I don't have a partner with me or a personal trainer with me, I'm going to go until I reach this point, and then I'm going to go, I'm done for the day. And that's the same with my healing. With like, I'm the same. I can be in a space where I'm willing to go a little bit deeper. Other times I'm like, I will procrastinate the hell out of it and just put it off and put it off and put it off. And in those times, I can't do that today, I'm too busy. I can't meditate today, I'm too busy. I can't journal on that today, I'm too busy. And in those times, that's when I need something like the breath work. That's when I need to have it scheduled in the diary. Because I know then I'm going to actively do it. And then there's no avoiding. There's no resistance. And somebody else is going to hold the space. When somebody else holds the space, I can go a bit deeper than I would otherwise.
So good, Emma. It has been like, oh my gosh, like an epic hour and a bit with you. And I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I would love to know. So I know that you do kind of energetic moon readings. I don't know, what would you call them? Energy forecasts, or
I do a little bit of energy forecasting with the moon. I teach people to be in alignment with the moon energy. So like, I find that if I work with the phases of the moon. A little bit with the astrology of the moon around like significant events, but with the phases of the moon to be in alignment so that we can feel like we're in flow more.
Yes, I love that. So important. So kind of related to that, and I don't know how you feel about this from that kind of forecasting type perspective, but especially from where we are right now, which is a point of global uncertainty, where do you feel we're going in the next few years?
Wow, it's a really big, scary question, that, isn't it? I feel that I'm not coming from a place of wanting to add fear to the equation at all, but I feel like that's going to get more before it gets less. You know, there's more. The resistance, like how do I put it? The resistance is rising within all of us, and it has to reach a critical point before the bubble bursts. And the more people that awaken to it, the easier it's going to get. But not enough people have awakened to it yet. So the pressure is still building. You know, it's still rising. So there's more. I do think that there's more fear to come, to be thrown at us. I think everybody needs to be putting themselves in a place where they can, as much as they possibly can, not allow that fear in. Like, you know, don't allow that fear in. You don't have to accept it into your energy. You don't have to. Like, that sounds like an impossible task to a lot of people. But the more you awaken to the rest of it, you know, the rest of it, the more you can protect your heart space, protect your energy, put boundaries in place.
I was just going to say, it comes back to that self-practice, doesn't it? You know, if I miss a day of not creating my own kind of sphere, as it were, and really intentionally creating that purer, oh my God, that's hard to say. Purer energy.
Yeah.
Then, I feel.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and it's like, and it's the whole, particularly for empaths right now, the whole world is feeling fear. And so if you're empathic, oh God, to not take that on is a real challenge. If you're an aware empath, then you are probably putting things in place to protect yourself. But the people that like are not aware of the fact that they're empaths, I can't imagine the pain that they must be in right now. I think we're going to come out of it, you know. The light always overcomes, you know. So we're going to come out of it, and in the not too distant future, I definitely think it's in the not too distant future that like everything is an ebb and flow, isn't it? Everything is an ebb and flow all the time. At the moment, we're on this trajectory, like, with regards to, like, you know, the fear and the polarization and the separation and all of that. But it will come back again. It will come, we'll start to rise again. More people will awaken. And as more people awaken, and as more people come to find their spiritual path, maybe, or for want of a better way of putting it, some people come to find their way home to themselves, the more that everything around us will soften. You know, that's like, and that's how I see it going. Like, we've got a little bit more to battle through, I think, like, first. But
I can definitely feel that too. And like you know, I've been talking this year about, it just feels like this really overdue kind of like birth, like this pregnancy, you know, where you're getting bigger.
It feels
and
like
bigger.
before just before a really potent full moon. This is the same kind of energy. It's that like pressure cooker energy, isn't it? That's rising. Like there has to be a critical point.
Yeah.
At some point. It is, there's a rebirth. There's a rebirth coming.
Gather the goddesses.
Absolutely. It feels really exciting to feel into that, that process. That feels good, doesn't it? To think that's on the horizon. And come on, Gaia.
You
got it.
Oh my God. And to connect with people, you know, like yourself, who are just like so here for it all, honestly. Here and ready to kind of support what is needing to be supported, and to just here for all of it. Amazing. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today, Emma. Where can people find you?
So www.thecrystalmoonmentor.com or the Crystal Moon Mentor on Facebook and Instagram. So
awesome, cool. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on today, and for such an expansive, amazing chat. Thank you.
Thank you.